Hi everyone. Apologies for the weather, but this is as good as it gets. The ambience is still there. So thank you very much for joining us. This is day 2 of the International Women's Day Festival of the Changemakers. And today we have 2 sessions. The first one with these amazing women, the pioneers, and our second one is with a male panel to get the male perspective. I'd just like to say thank you very much to all our sponsors, Table by Tharu and Kaleidoscope, which is my program that goes on YouTube. Both of us are extremely appreciative of Cargill's, our festival title sponsor. And our event sponsor for today is the UNFPA. Thank you so much. Our exclusive radio partner is Light 87. Exclusive digital media partner, Daily Mirror Online and High Online, and all our media friends who are here and have been ever so supportive of this venture. To Healing Island, our wellness partner, for the very handy sanitizing wipes that you would have got in your pouch. Those are extremely handy. I carry it with me all the time. Wine World, Zone In, and Olu, our beverage partners. And on your, you will be served some amazing drinks today made with the Kist range, which actually is strawberry and basil Collins using Kist strawberry soda and a green apple rosemary cinnamon spritz using Kist green apple juice. In celebration of Women's Day, I have one more surprise. After our panel discussions end this evening, both sessions, do stay on at Table by Tharu and enjoy a 10% discount on your dining experience. Again, I have dined here. The food is amazing, and I would say it would be good to try it out and come again and again and again. So we are on with the pioneers. You know, nobody ever understands what a pioneer is doing until it is done. The criticisms are many, but the path is rough, and only those traveling that path will actually know. While the world is replete with women pioneers who have each paved themselves a very rough road to travel, I might add, in Sri Lanka too, those women have not had it easy. Look at some of our pioneers. I'm just going to take some at random. Jayanti Kuru Tumpala, the first Sri Lankan to scale Mount Everest. The mother and daughter combo of Sirimavo Bandaranaike and Chandrika Kumaratunga, who each, in their own way, broke a barrier or two. Dr. Vajira Chitrasena, the first professional female Kandyan dancer in Sri Lanka. Professor Hiranya Pires, who was an integral member of the 27-strong team of the Wilkinson microwave anisotropy probe. And there was architect Minute De Silva, Sri Lanka's first modernist architect. And Dr. Asha Divos, the first and only Sri Lankan to have a PhD in marine mammal research, and also the first Pew Fellow in marine conservation from Sri Lanka. And most recently, what made the news is Sri Lanka's first female Deputy Inspector General of Police in its 154-year history of the Sri Lanka Police. That is Bimshani Jasinarachi. And of course, the list goes on. Each year, we celebrate Women's Day knowing full well that women make up half the population, but we also know that the barriers don't seem to be breaking down. The archaic, sort of the constrained traditions, policies, attitudes, our cultures, there are barriers everywhere, and these continue to play a huge role in shaping the way all of us think, communities, societies, individuals. And take the case of DIG Jasina Arachi, for instance. She's currently fighting a petition filed by 36 male police officers challenging her appointment simply on the basis that there is no provision to appoint a female DIG as per the law. That's what she's fighting. Believe you me, every woman fights a battle every single day. So Sri Lanka's narrative in gender equality is checkered. We celebrate women who pave the way, and then we are equally enthusiastic about bringing them down. Culturally, we are patriarchal with the everyday woman facing immense hardships. For her, gender equality doesn't mean a thing really. For her, survival is what means everything. In studies done by the UNFPA, 90% of the women and girls experience sexual harassment in public transport. 1 in 3 female homicides in a study done in 5 provinces were a result of intimate partner violence. 2 in 5 women experience violence and or controlling behavior by a partner. And even though Sri Lanka has a very high number of female graduates, labor force participation is very, very low. And women spend 86.4% of their time in unpaid domestic services. So, gender equality is somehow quite far away. So today we are chatting with three women. Just let me give you an idea of who they are. Each are pioneers in their own right, each having had diverse battles along in their journey, no matter what criticisms have been leveled their way. And these journeys have been an inspiration to every one of us. On my left is Varuni Amunugama Fernando. She is the first female in Sri Lanka to jointly found a media network which changed the media landscape in Sri Lanka, and it has become the #1 media network in the country. Sri Lanka Can, which has been the driving principle behind how she actually leads her teams, and she has an LLB at the University of Colombo and is an attorney at law by profession. Yeah. So the most important thing I was going to tell you about Varuni is she's the co-founder of Triad Advertising and Therana Media Network of the George Stewart's Group. Next to me is Ashanti Dialvis, the youngest and only Sri Lankan female to be signed by an international record label, which is Universal Music, and she's also Sri Lanka's first female hip-hop artist. Winning both awards nationally, winning awards nationally and internationally. She has toured the globe and performed worldwide on stages from the Sydney Opera House to the Millennium Dome in London and at the Cannes Film Festival. And her School of Music, Ashanti School of Music, is the largest contemporary music school in the island and offers Trinity College London rock and pop examinations. Kasturi, she's been in the news more than ever these last few weeks. No stranger again, but I owe it to her to give her an introduction. She's the first female CEO of a blue chip conglomerate in Sri Lanka and has been recognized by the Parliament of Sri Lanka as one of the 12 top women change makers in Sri Lanka in 2019. She also broke new ground when she was elected the first female president of the Sri Lanka Chamber of the Pharmaceutical Industry. Her accomplishments are many. She is a fellow of the Chartered of SEMA and is also an alumni of the Senior Executive Leadership Program at Harvard Business School. She's a committee member of the National Sports Council, having represented Sri Lanka in netball and basketball. So that was a bit of a mouthful. Sorry if it was a bit long-winded, but given that we are dealing with the pioneers and also multiple issues that plague women on a daily basis, let me ask each of you, it's a general question to all three, maybe I'll start with Kasturi. Did any of you ever think you were actually doing a first for women and actually carving history when you started this climb up the ladder?
Hi everyone, and thanks for taking time to come out to listen to the pioneers. It's absolutely humbling. But so for me, honestly, there was an article saying I was an accidental accountant. I'm an accidental career person. I just didn't, I never looked at myself as a career person. So when I ventured down that road, it was not a first for me, but it was just, I was doing my job. Of course, internally, when I got into HEMAS, every role change I did was going into a seat which was owned by a man and an industry which was male. So you have a CIO role, and it was a guy who knew who you were. He was technically qualified, not me. So I knew it was a woman thing, but when I went into driving transportation, yes, it was, I knew internally from HEMA's point of view, it was the first. And once I got in, then I realized, outside out there were no MDs of transportation. Now there are plenty. Same for pharma. I guess it came from the fact that I was more looking at my work and more stressed out about what I have to do and how I'm going to fit in with all these self-doubts. And the best was the CEO role, because I knew internally, yes, it was a family-owned, and for HEMAS, it was the first female. And I was then more stressed about how do I get out there and do my job versus how the world perceived me. So I didn't see it coming. And for this, for the group CEO thing, when I realized it was the first female group CEO, matter of fact, it was. So I didn't see the impact. I didn't understand the impact. And most importantly, I didn't realize how much it impacted the younger generation. For them, the simple word was, you gave us hope. And for me, it was embarrassment, but they said hope. Of course, it impacted the older people a bit differently. I had people who were saying, so what, like it's not a big deal, which was true. But, there were the mix, but the majority which gave me the strength to continue was the younger generation who just said it was hope. So I didn't see it, but afterwards it kind of sunk in, yeah.
So, Varuni?
Hi everyone, and as Kas said, thank you very much for coming despite the doom and gloom. And I think Savi added to it by painting this gloomy picture of women. I want to counter that. Leaving that aside, I didn't plan it as well, but the only thing is, I have a background of working with egoistic men. I grew up with a father who has a huge ego. I'm married to a guy who has a lesser ego but still an ego. My partner in business has a massive ego. So with all of that, but I did realize something. There are so many things that a man can do, but there's so much more that a woman can do. You know, the hand that rocks the cradle can rule with a fist of iron with a velvet glove. And the way we do things is very different. I think we are more passionate, there's more empathy, and maybe the softer skill is what we kind of bring to the table. So I am a law student, so I never actually planned anything. It was just wanting to have fun and wanting to do something different. Why advertising? Because when the universities were closed, I worked at Phoenix in a very junior capacity. But one thing I did realize was that communication was one way where you could really change the mindsets of the people. And the Sri Lankan people by nature. Now, if you ask them, කොහොමද? Their reply will be වරදක් නැහැ. Do we ever see them saying නියමයි? Never, right? We are shy. We are කුලෑටි. We are shy to be, out there and talking about it, and we are even shy to be positive. So we felt that we could change this perception about ourselves, about the community, and also the country to be positive. So all the competitor agencies or the other agencies at the time were multinational agencies. So it was really a business decision. At that point in time, we were in the second year of the university, but we felt when we positioned our company, there was a gap for truly indigenous communication company. So it was a business offering. We didn't think too far, but we felt it was a business offering where we could build local brands. Because at this point in time, the multinationals were doing very well because they were creating this dream. And the consumers were Sri Lankan, but the money was going elsewhere. So we wanted to give that knowledge and insight to the local brands, saying, hey, you know what, your manufacturing is perfect, your product is superb, but you're not building the dream. So we as Sri Lankans felt that we understood that dream. So we wanted to help build local brands, but as Kas said, it was just accidental.
I did happen to read that particular line of the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world with an iron fist and a velvet glove. You kind of like that statement, yeah. Ashanti, just to add to that question also, I just want to know, your mom is a musician, you come from a background of musicians, but why hip hop, and how did you ever think that you were sort of this female going into this it's definitely a male area to work to sing in, to perform in. Tell me what actually drove you into that?
When I first got into music, I didn't really feel like I was doing anything special. But I did know that I had a passion for music and I really wanted to show my voice and also create my own sound. I wasn't really thinking of it in the perspective of doing any kind of first, but for me, it was just the drive for passion for music. And when I first started, my two role models in front of me were two males, Bhatia and Santosh. So I saw the way that they conducted themselves and the way that they spoke to writers and creative people. And I thought, okay, maybe I can do that too, but I don't really know if these people are going to take me very seriously because I'm still a small kid, about 18 or 19 growing up. I went up to one of the at that point probably a channel head at a pretty prestigious TV station and said, "Aya, can you write this song for me? I have this melody. It was written by Bhatia, so I had a name to put in front there." And so he was like, "I'll think about it. You give me a call in about 2 weeks' time. I might have something for you. We'll see." So here was I, just thinking, how am I supposed to get this going if no one's going to take me seriously? And after that, I think I grew up a little bit and it got a little tougher because I had to. The industry definitely demanded that. And without that, I don't feel like a young girl trying to make an impact, that it would be possible. And when they realized that I had this drive and I really wanted to make a change and I was doing something different, they supported me wholeheartedly. So I had to prove myself.
Right. So, yes, it is. It would have been a hard slog.
Definitely.
Kasturi, there is a thought process because we've been talking about the first female, the first female, and the first female. But there is a thought process that we shouldn't be identifying women for what they have done by gender per se. That, so example, you, first female CEO, group CEO, but just say Kasturi Chellaraja, group CEO without saying female. Now tell me, when you look at, in that context, that argument, because it apparently, this is the other side of the argument, that alone shows that the woman is being judged by her gender rather than her ability. What do you think?
So, so I have two views of this. I think when there were not many women achieving certain, going into the unknown territory and achieving certain things, I think in that context they were trying to state that a woman had done it. But what in turn they were doing was actually profiling it as it's more like a gender thing, right, versus what they brought to the table. I think now is the time we rest this gender thing and encourage women's leadership qualities out there. And I learned it when all my interviews have been based mostly on the female who did it where others couldn't do it. How did you go through? How did you balance your family? You know what? Everybody balances when you need to. And it's a perfect imbalance, right? So eventually so when I became CEO, Sima Global got a lady from Hong Kong who interviewed me, and that article is out, and that accidental accountant. But when I read through that, it was the first time they brought the essence of what I brought to the table. They had interviewed my first boss who said how when a team of 7 out of the 7 netballers, 6 had gone. And single-handedly they told me to rebuild the team. In 3 months we beat the other team with the 6 of our people there. And said the resilience in the leadership. So we have something to bring to the table. We don't lead the same way a guy would, like Varuni said. Our strengths are different. And that's what we are. And in a certain situation, we kind of succeed. In some situations, I mean, there might be a boss, certain qualities which are needed. Maybe men would possess it. So I think it's time we celebrate the qualities we bring and the uniqueness we bring to the table. And one thing we do, I mean, which Varuni does very well, and I'm learning that women do that very well, is we nurture and we build teams around, and success is together. And it's awkward when, and I apologize to my teams when I'm highlighted. I keep saying, yeah, but you all do the work, and they have to pick somebody, and my face is splashed there. And but yeah, it is a thing. But you know what? To a certain point, you need to bring the gender side only to encourage other women to say, to hope, to aspire. If that's what they want, you can do it. But versus now, you should profile the quality, the leadership, the styles they bring, and the outcomes they drive as an individual. I think that should be now the switch we should look for.
Varuni, you were just taking off from what Kasturi said. You have a very young team, and I don't see any gender disparities there at all. It's like very much on meritocracy. How do you empower your women, especially those who are doing everyday jobs and who have families and children, and they multitask a lot, how do you as a female see their role, and how do you actually empower them to make sure that they are productive in the office?
I think everything starts at the interviewing point, Savi, because I really get to meet each and every one of them. So at that point in time, during the discussion, we share a few thoughts, mostly about the values of our group, where we talk about it's a team, it's a shared vision, and there's absolute transparency and respect. So there we tell them about, we don't talk about rights, because it just seems so cold and, that's not where we want to go. But what we say is, look, it's uppy, so everybody matters. Your example or imagery is what you have at home. Now, gedara budun namma. So, then indirectly we are giving them the imagery, hey, the lady matters. Tata is the provider. So then the man also is part of the team. So in the discussion, we it's not a conventional or a borrowed Western thought, but this family we bring in at that discussion point to imagerize and tell them everybody here matters. Now, stemming from that, this whole thing about sexual harassment or what happens in office, because we can have the discussion. Empowerment is one thing, I'll come to that. But how do we kind of guard them and also tell them, whether you're a boy or a girl, what we tell them is it's about mutual respect. Everybody here needs to be respected. Nobody can shout, lose their cool and insult. Nobody can carry tales. So we set the ground rules, and it's a very transparent place, so they know where it's at. Now, where empowerment, I think it's like pushing them into the deep end and getting them to swim. But in our media work, it's always team-centered. So you can see it doesn't have any gender bias. It's all to do with who has an idea, who's able to strategize, who can work together as one team. And we also know that the best ideas come out if it is a team effort, because each one contributes, and it's like a gem. Each one adds, each one contributes. So through imagery, I think because we are in the media industry, we give the kids a lot of imagery, which they can identify with. And in turn, I think we live by example. We work hard, also we play hard. So in that, it's a flat hierarchy. So I think they see everyone. Rosh is here. He's known us for the last probably 30 years. I think he can vouch for that, where we really, do things together, and I think the kids learn from it and understand what's expected of them. And of course, if they don't, they're punished.
As they should be, yes. Ashanti, the Me Too movement the world over started in the performance or in the arts industry due to various the exploitation of women that happened. But now Sri Lanka does not have a strong movement, and actually there is no movement at all, if I am right. How does artists like you actually handle the abuse of some sort, whether it's physical, psychological, or even cyber? How do you handle things like that, and why isn't there a more sort of outspoken movement like that so that it helps others to get their voice heard?
Well, with regards to the Me Too movement, I feel that although it globally picked up and really created a lot of change, in Sri Lanka, maybe the reason why it didn't pick up is because the patriarchy is so strong. And another thing is our cultural barriers are so immense that we are unable to reach out into that for yourself, for myself, and say, I want to expose this. It's too small of a community to start with in the first place. And everyone cares about what everyone else thinks. So if we can first break through that, then I think we've won half the battle. You said something else with regards to cyberbullying and any other kind of harassment. I think for the first time in my life, I will expose something. I have had a stalker for the last 10 years, which I never spoke about publicly. But this was at the very peak of my career, and it was very damaging for me because everywhere I went, I had to look behind myself to see, is someone hiding in the bushes? Is someone, how many numbers do I have to block? Hundreds a day. And I've actually even been to the authorities and got a restraining order, even to that extent. So now I said that was about 5 to 10 years ago, before social media was such a huge thing. I think we can use social media as a medium in a positive way to make people see these things. And I do know that Umaria came out with a story recently, which I'm sure everyone's aware of. And I think that's a very bold move. If we can all be a little bold, I think we can really make a difference.
You talk about being bold. If one or two of you or three of you actually form a collective voice, yes, the others might be compelled to come forward.
Sabi, I want to add
yeah.
something to that. Voice alone is not enough. See, what happens is most of the time we just talk about it or we post about it on Facebook or something, but nothing happens. It's far better. Okay, we might not be able to have this huge national movement, but start small, help, talk, try to do things within your periphery. That might transform into something bigger, might not. But at least you will, if you help one other person who you can easily identify, then you really achieve something great, because sometimes we wait for the big movement and only a tsunami comes, that movement doesn't come.
Kasturi, being a single mom might be quite liberating for some, might not be quite liberating for others. They may not have the right fit. But in the equation of multiple roles that women are forced to play, what do you think, drawing from your experiences, do you think having no encumbrances of the patriarchal husband, so to speak, at home, to have to answer questions, etc., will work for women in general? Huh? In general.
So I think you need the right partner if you need a career. You want more for yourself. I'm not talking about everybody aspiring to be CEOs. If you want something, just to feel fulfilled. Because the longest of time, I just want to feel fulfilled and that my brain was working. I worked part-time. And so the only advantage I had in being a single mom was that I controlled my time. I didn't have to answer to anybody except my children. So my time was split between my kids and work. And that was me and the kids, and that was my right. So I didn't have to answer to somebody else. However, that's the only thing. And I looked after my parents alone. So for me, I mean, I wouldn't say I think you should figure out, that's why I said this partnerships, and I think the younger generations, the young guys have these kind of relationships. The other side of it is when you come from a hard day of work, if you are going to have a husband who is going to, each time you open your mouth to talk about a problem, you get a pushback saying, yeah, so the problem is yours. You would have been the one, you know that, and you stop talking. So I hear a lot of women say, I don't even share because the next thing is, yeah, but the problem is yours. So you just want somebody to listen. So you don't have that. Fine, that's okay. I think the biggest problem I feel when you are single or a single mom and a caregiver is you make decisions regarding your children and your parents every single day. These are emotional decisions. You don't know whether you're right or wrong. Whether my mother had to take an operation on a brain operation, I needed to pray on it to see whether I got to do. And my kids, every day I'm deciding whether to put them into this class or that class. At one point, I've cried a million times in the shower because I get tired of taking decisions alone. You don't want that. But I won't compromise that for the sake of just having somebody to share, and if it's a blank wall, it wouldn't work. So I think it's a tough place. It's a tough place that it has benefits when you want a career or you have to have a career. You don't have to answer to why you're getting late and who is the person you're going for a meeting with. I did once have a relationship which I had those questions, and I was like, okay, you don't answer this. I'm not going to answer to this. I can answer to my kids, but not to anybody else. But I ideally, yet I'm a person who lives in hope. I believe in the constitution of marriage. I believe in romance. I believe that, you can build that partnership with the right person. So don't give it up. And dialogue, communication is absolutely important.
All three of you. Varuni, have you ever, in your career or time or whatever it is, have you ever sort of experienced any kind of discrimination along the way because you are female?
No, Sabi. I think it's probably my own attitude. I probably live in this whole bubble of my own where I don't see it that way, probably. Maybe it is there, I just don't see it. I see the positivity in it. I mean, I work in an environment which is definitely male dominant, but in my mind, I think that I'm the necessary evil. They need me, and I have to be there, and I make the difference. So this diva mentality in my mind blinds me, and I'm thinking, yeah, they need me.
Maybe that's the attitude we all just need to take, your diva mentality. Ashanti, just
I'm
getting
definitely
back
going to take
say-
a few pages from
I know.
Varni's book. Yeah. I know I haven't faced any discrimination like that. I think, fortunately for me, the industry that I am is quite wholesome. The music industry as a whole, I think, just tends to build each other up. Whether it be that you're male or female. And also, even with regards to equal pay, a woman would be able to demand or command the same pay as a male would in the industry. So I think that's a great place to be.
And Kasturi?
So for me, I actually didn't feel it maybe because I was a tomboy or I just chose to ignore it. But I guess one thing I learned is not being the diva, but I realized the importance of being good at what you do and better than the rest. So yeah, it was a bit of the diva because I knew they needed me, and I knew that I kind of I was more courageous than the men in the room. I was more confident than them. I was willing to chase behind unseen business deals. There was a maritime thing, and I was told by the board, it's so dangerous, just give up. I said, don't talk nonsense, I've come this far, I'm going behind it. And it's that courage. And I learned very early in school. When I was in the A-level stream, I was doing maths, and that was only a class of 2, and the principal found me valuable, and they created a class for the double maths, physics, chemistry. It was only for me, and then one girl came from St. Clair's. And the teacher, Miss Mirza, taught me maths in English. Of course, that had a problem in the A-levels, but that was another story. But so you learn to be valuable. Why the Somay students paid for my education? Because I was important for them. It may be for netball, but I was important for them. And at Hemas, that was the same thing. I mean, is a problem in IT. I took the CIO's role. Did I know anything about it? Thank God there was a boss who kind of encouraged me to own my space. But it's not, it is, I knew my worth. I knew I could do it better than the others. And most of all, I brought passion, and I was very bold and courageous. I could take any challenge. It didn't come with cockiness. I've been through so much in life that if I fall, it's not a big deal. I'll pick up and come up stronger. So you equip yourself with skills to survive and learn from your mistakes. I guess I did learn from a lot of stuff in life, and that gave me courage. So yeah, it was the necessary evil in some ways.
Do you think women actually hold themselves back when it comes to reaching the top in any way? Do you feel that because it's just too much work,
I don't
maybe?
think they hold themselves back if they want to get it. I guess they second get that fact that to want that. They need to aspire for that. They don't see that in that vision, in that periphery, because there are so many unconstrained biases there, and it's sometimes tough to envision that. Even including me, did I envision that even 4 years ago, I'll be the group CEO? No. Because I was busy doing what I was doing. I was not busy looking at the next horizon. But I guess if you start looking at it, but you can look at it the other way. Just do what you're doing today, enjoy it, do excellent in it, and there'll be another door opening. I kind of look at it that way because I was trying to promote a young girl into a director's role, but I gave her a choice to move around, to equip herself with different skills. Um, and she finally told me, I said, I think you could be potentially another MD of a cluster. But you need to move around. That's the thing I learned from what I did. And she said, yeah, right. But I said, what do you want? And she said, oh, I want to earn $1 million in 2 years, and I want to be a director in 2 years. And I thought, whoa, that's a wrong thing to want, because I would love to hear us say, I want to get this experience, that, and succeed and drive some results. So in some ways, that's very short-sighted. But I thought, look, I'm not going to write her off. I'll have to coach her to want something more out of life than a title. Once you get $1 million and a title, what do you do beyond that? That's not fulfillment. Yeah, so I guess they need to see that. I didn't see it, but I saw that I could be excellent, and that gave me what I want in the personal sense of fulfillment, I guess.
Would there be any questions from the audience? We do have a microphone if anyone wants to ask any questions while we're at it. Okay, so yeah.
Savi, thank you for giving us this opportunity. Thank you for all the partners who came forward to make this a reality. It's a joy just to listen to all of you. The question is, all of you, each one of you, you have become successful. Your voice is heard, you're known, you have achieved what you want to achieve in life, and you own that space. Are you going to be happy with that? Or do you think that, you mentioned this earlier, you also did, there are women getting together under different organizations, forums, clusters, chambers, all of that. I'm not taking politics into consideration here, but take the corporate world. All of you are there. We are proud of you. We aspire to be like you. Good. Very nice. But do you think there's another journey out there where you could be a part of a bigger picture, a bigger role, where at least in the corporate world, we could have a kind of a stronger voice for all of us? There is strength in numbers, right? Hashtag #MeToo came into the picture at some point. I'm not saying that's good or bad, not that. But is there a bigger journey out there which you have not yet started, which you could be a part of, which we could join, where at least in the corporate world, female, women, we, all of us, could get together for a better tomorrow? Thank you. I'm Sandamali from Cargills.
Sandamali, thank you for the question. But I think we need to be real. Because what happens is, just because we band together, just because we shout and scream, it's not going to completely change. It depends on different sectors, it depends on the different disciplines. One huge blanket shout out is not going to work. But you're right in this sense. Wherever women are placed at the moment, where they're taking decisive roles, yes, they can start a certain thought process. But the most important thing, I think all of us propagate this. We are trying to move away from, okay, just because you're a woman, do this. What we are saying is, forget the gender. Give it on skill. Give it on merit. Bring us up to speed on that. We are trying to move away from the gender. If I am personally if I'm supposed to, or if I'm looking forward to another journey, it has nothing to do with the career. I would inspire the girl to think, okay, you're a born multitasker. Just don't choose one or the other, the career or motherhood. If I can inspire a girl to think I can balance both, I can be a good mother, I can also have a career, and I can balance my life, that will give you more fulfillment than anything else. So more than that collectiveness, if I'm personally called upon to inspire anyone, I would go that route.
Thanks, Sadamani. That was, yeah, a great question. So for me, I've always, while you have a job as a career and you represent your company, I've always had the passion to do some changes. And like, I mean, Varuni, when there are big causes, I call her and say, Varuni, what do you do? And she's the practical one saying, Kas, we'll have to do it this way and that way. And I chose when I've always been mentoring young girls, but when I became the CEO, I chose to stop and go to the universities. I needed to change, help them to change their mindset, want more, how they stand up. And I've encouraging them when they have kids, don't put the questions of aneme wow kellek, so you can't walk like this, you can't talk like this, sadda danna epa, you're a girl. And don't tell the boys also, don't cry like a girl, because you're just let them be unique. So one thing I think I've learned, I was one of these young ones who thought you can change the world. I've learned to change from the grassroots. You can't do it. At least let's give the next generation some hope. What the corporates you see happening is thanks to people like you all. We've kind of moved into this whole culture of, I'm sure in another 10 years, now it's not an old boys club, you'll have a girls club there. And the ecosystem would be accepting a girls club. There are more women. I mean, we have so many women in our senior leadership. We have over 30% of senior leadership with women. And they make a bigger rumpus than the men, and they kind of are having a more share of voice than the men. So you need to do, but I guess your point being, we are in a place we could influence change. We could influence some kind of direction in, I guess, if something is wrong. You can stand up for what's right, but we can't be seen, we can't rally and just change it. I guess we'll have to take a step back and see what drivers to change. And that will have to start from the grassroots in some ways.
Ashanti, your music, taking again from what Kasturi and Varuni both said, that we need to start from that bottom end, the grassroots level. Your music is very socially conscious. Tell me a little bit more about that and how that got to be and how you have actually seen tangible change because of what you have done.
So yeah, that's a good question, and I was trying to relate your question to music as well, because I feel that music is like a universal language. It crosses all boundaries, cultures, gender, and I feel that you can really reach into another person's heart and soul through music. And for me, being the first female hip hop artist in Sri Lanka, I framed myself to a sound, and finding myself beyond that frame was difficult, because immediately when someone sees me, they'll be like, Ashanti Ake, or something. And that's not my personality. I'm quite a soft person, although I have a very hard exterior. So for me, I'd like, take a few steps back and be slightly like a little afraid to approach them. So then moving on beyond my passion from hip hop, and kind of growing up in the music industry, because we're in the limelight, everyone sees your every move and every step that you make. And for me, going from my 20s into my 30s was a challenge, because I was like, after this young, fresh sound, how do I transition? Where do I go? And for a while, for about 4 to 5 years, I was thinking about it. I was silent. But I took a step back because I wanted to find myself musically, and also to find myself as an adult, and the things that I wanted to challenge, and also the things that I wanted, that I felt passionate about, that I wanted to share with people. So I stumbled, it's a long story. Very briefly, I stumbled across a project that was given to me by the British Council called Women of the World Festival. So I was like, wow, this is interesting. I curated music for the festival. It was the first festival for women in Sri Lanka. And it was great. It was partnered by the South Bank Centre in London, and I had done some work for them before, and I knew how it went. So we did some really cool stuff, like bringing ladies from Batticaloa down to Colombo, giving them a chance to explore their talents through theatre, music, showcasing other young artists and stuff like that. And then I was awarded a grant to create some original creative content for women and girls. While putting my head to this, I realized that the rate for suicide and depression in Sri Lanka was so high, probably one of the highest in South Asia, and this was extremely alarming. And I just tried to analyze why that was, because our culture is so closed and we don't talk about things. So I created my new creative pathway from there as an extension to my existing music, talking about socially conscious music. And it started with Hita Danne Mituranne, which speaks about the challenges of suicide and depression, and how and we created a campaign about what the other mediums are that you can go through to overcome these, and how we can talk about them, how you can get help. And following that, it went into a space of gender-based violence and analyzing gender-based violence a little bit more. We try to tackle 3 different things, but it's such a vast subject, and it's just got a lot. It's quite heavy, that we were only able to address harassment in public transportation and in the workplace. After that, I was reached out to by UNFPA, and Sharika and I had so many conversations, and I actually wanted to when I get involved in music, it comes from a space that it's very personal. So I want to immerse myself in the creative process. And I went and spoke to the counselors from Women in Need about the actual stories that they had heard, and I was horrified to actually even see that these are the things that are happening to women in Sri Lanka. You said 20% of women in Sri Lanka have been through intimate partner violence.
Officially. Reported.
Officially, yes. And only, I think, according to the UNFPA research, 4% has been have gone to the authorities. So this is something really important that we need to address as well. And I feel that my next music video is a stem from that, and it is based on intimate partner violence. It was supposed to be launched today, but I think with the UNFPA research, we will be launching it together later on. So that's how my journey with socially conscious music began. And I feel that a big part of me is also in creating a voice, or giving a voice for women who may not really have the means to find it yet, and also educating the males about what they can do to challenge and change this.
Is there a question from the audience? Yes. Oh, okay. Sam and then Blessy. Just a minute.
So it's lovely to hear what you're doing, and you are already a voice for the girls. So I'm an educator. I work in the grassroots. And I started at university, and after 10 years, you realize that's too late to do anything. So you come back down. And I had the luck to get into a school which is a bit of a countercurrent. And what I really would like to ask you all is, what do you want your girl children to be told, and what do you want us teachers to do? Because we need to change the status quo from the word go. Before they say, pink is for you and blue is for me. My child at Montessori suddenly came home and said, no pink. He grew up in yellow and pink and peach and blue baby shirts. And he came back home from Montessori one day and said, no, only blue. So it's not just you and your family, everything is out there. What do you want done that we can change from there?
We will go with Kasturi first, very briefly, since time is of the essence. What would you like to tell educators? Maybe we'll stick to that. Educators, how do you bring up your charges?
I think it's just the conversation. You like to look at them as individuals without saying girls or boys. And when you look at options, even no doors, just bring the cars and just edu toys in, which are anything you want. Give them options when you grow up. Everything, even a guy boy would be interested from engineering the motor cars to driving. Uh, it's just neutral. As individuals, we have to do that. But the struggle I feel is at home. They don't see that. They don't see their parents having that equality of thought, equality of choice. And how do you get these children to accept that this is okay? The challenge I'll find is there. I guess if you pick them around grade 8, 9, 10, where they can understand and give them hope or whatever. But and it's not for girls. I'm talking for boys as well, because they're going to be the future husbands or fathers. You need to educate them to want more for their wives and sisters and daughters. So.
Ashanti, since you also have a school and you do have students with you,
I would say break the biases as much as possible. Like you said, pink is for girls and blue is for boys. I recently had a parent tell me that he wanted his son to sing a more masculine song. And I paused for a second. And I was like, I didn't really think that because a female sang this song that it would be labeled as a certain gender. Because for me, as an educator, I felt that it had all the technical elements that were required for a little boy to be taught how to sing. And I said, this is the syllabus and this is how it works. I don't really think I can change it. So I think, first of all, yes, kids need to have parents and educators just like you who will let them be themselves. I come from a background where I had a dad who used to make my lunchbox for school and iron my uniform before I used to go to school, because my mom was juggling a lot of things and was a musician as well. So he was very supportive. So I'm fortunate enough to come from a background like that. So I think if we can spread as much of that as possible to the parents who we influence and also to the kids, I think Sri Lanka will be a better place.
Varuni?
Sam, I would like to request or appeal if you can inculcate a sense of patriotism. It doesn't matter about the gender, because we are growing up thinking every other nation is better than us. Everything else is better than what we get here. And that sense of gratitude for what you have. You know, that feeling that this country is our motherland and the goodness of what we have got from them. Maybe introduce a curriculum like civic responsibility or something like in another country, where they grow up thinking, yes, I have allegiance to this government or country, whatever the government, and they protect me. So that sense of gratitude, in that sense, a lot of people, I'm going to tap, Savi said somebody's going to fire a question saying it's easy for her to speak. You know, she's had it easy. But that goes back to me thinking about my father and the sense of values. Just as Ashanti said, mine always told me, wake up every morning thinking about how lucky you are. He used the word lucky, not rich, nothing. He said, if you have a roof over your head, if you have a warm meal, if you are healthy, and if you have friends and family who love you, you are the wealthiest. So that sense of pride in the country, sense of gratitude for whatever little that you have got, without constantly cribbing and criticizing, and feeling that I am lucky. And then internally you become a more positive, better human being, a sharing human being. So that is my appeal to you.
Blessy, would you like to ask your question? This
Do
will
we
be
have
the
time?
final one.
Is it okay? We have time? Being at the position where all of you are, I cannot imagine the journey if it was lonely, if you had support. I also know how women can be. It can be competitive. In your position, as you vie for the few spots of prominence, whether it's in the corporate culture, in the music industry, how can you teach us, or what can we do as women to support each other in whatever field that we're in? Because I feel that oftentimes, as much as we get held down by the guys, we also get weighed down by women in our lives, ourselves, our competitors, our peers, even our friends. What can we do to support each other? Like, based on maybe experiences that you've had on the journey that you've embarked on.
So can we again start with Kasturi? What exactly should we
And
do
I-
to support each other?
So, I guess the thing again, talk about bring a culture of ask every woman your competition is not with each other. Figure out what makes you unique and make yourself the best version of what you are. In any form of diversity to celebrate that, because I realized that when I was in these roles, there were not many women, there were no women, but I was blessed with a close set of friends who always encouraged me. And one is Varuni there, and Savitri is here. I had my close friends from school who would be proud of me, but then I had the other lot who would be, I still have, amazingly, yesterday I was listening to somebody saying, what does this lady have against you? I said, like, I don't know. I mean, I meet her once a year, what's up? And she said, she had asked somebody, are you all really, is Kasturi paying you all to put you all in the papers? And I'm like, okay, shit, I don't want to even be out there. But you'll find that. You can't ask for a perfect world. But I'll encourage all of you all, celebrate each other, because each of us is unique. I won't be Varuni, Varuni won't be me. But we need a Varuni of the world, we need a you of the world, we need a me of the world maybe. And if you view it from that side, and I used to say, I tell my kids, we are blessed, because when I had down times, when I was feeling really lonely, I would think, look at the other side. You're blessed because you have a roof, you're blessed because you're healthy, you're blessed because your kids are good, and they are healthy, and my parents are healthy. So like when you tick those boxes, you're happy. Same way in your career. See what you own. Don't keep, whether it's a man or a woman, just don't aspire for the next seat. Aspire being the best you can be, because there'll be another seat which will come vacant, because the world is changing. The traditional roles are moving, and suddenly they'll see something you're good at and say, wow, this person should be put here to develop that, and that's where the new role would come in. But that's a good point, but and we have only just few of you all, but just support each other, because each of you all will have your moment. And at that time, you'll want your people to celebrate with you. So,
Ashanti?
I think it begins with introspection. I feel like when you're the best version of yourself, just like Kasturi said as well, everything seems more balanced for you. And when everything balances out for yourself, then you want the same kind of balance for all your peers around you. And I think that it begins with you. If you love yourself, the way you see the world and the way you see other people and the way you want to help them also really changes.
Varuni, you get the last word.
Yeah. Basically, we have to admit we love the drama, right? So half the time we are attention seeking, and we create this I am a victim kind of mentality. Right? I mean, it goes for me too. Whenever a very random general thing takes place, I would put myself as the victim. Oh, so and so said something. Did that person mean something? Nobody has actually said. So most of the issues I have found, now okay, I have partners who are men. And this actually happened to me. That's what I'm saying. So I once felt very alienated because my younger partner called the older one to approve something while I was there and didn't call me. And I thought, oh, nobody needs me now. And everybody doesn't, they moved on. But fortunately, the difference was I voiced it. Now, without suffering in silence, that's the basic thing. Either we can be the victim, feel the victim, and suffer in silence, or we bail the cat. So in this case, personally, what I did was, I sat both of them down and I said, look, I'm very hurt. I was sitting right there and neither one of you included me. I'm very upset about it. And this whole harangue. And these two guys, they looked at me like, what are you on about? They didn't have a clue. So then that gave me the thought. Sometimes it's all in our heads. We are conjuring it up in our heads. We are working ourselves up. But the answer to that is, if we are upset about something, stop feeling the victim, get a hold of yourself, talk to that person and say, look, hey, I'm upset, I'm hurt. You said this to me, why? Then you will find out half your battles will be won that way.
So I have a mantra which I tell is, look, you can't control what people tell about you. But I believe, like Ashanti says, I said, find your inner peace and fulfillment. And big part of it is your friends and your other things you do in life other than your corporate world, title and work. And all you can control is how you react. Focus on how you react. And you have a choice. I tell this to my young boys when, I mean, they're young men. But that anger or whatever, I said, you have a choice. How you react, step back and think. If you react this way, this is the road you're taking. If you react this way, that's the road. So just take a deep breath, and I don't. I mean, I get amused, but there's some place that they are not having fulfillment. That's why they keep talking or not supporting. You find that you need a sisterhood to support you. You need your partners to support you. Without that is going to be really lonely and tough.
And one last thing, just to add to what Kass is saying, you have to treat the other people the way you want to be treated. And then you find that it's much easier to manage things.
Good enough thoughts to take back? So thank you very much, Varuni, Kass, and Ashanti. I'd love to keep chatting, but we have another session where the boys come on. And so thank you very much, all three of you, for being here, for sharing all your insights. And also, just one last phrase, be the best version of yourself. That's what all three of them said. And never mind having a little bit of a drama feel about you. What the hell? Be the diva a little bit. You need that ego sometimes. But thank you so much, all of you also. I hope you're staying on for the next session as well.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Savi.
Thank you. Thank you, Savi.